I wouldn't pay attention to them because the natural instinct of a country like Japan, for example, is passivity. Do everything you can to avoid war. In the case of South Korea, they have their hands full with the North Korea situation. And the Quigley administration has answers for that problem too. But because they're sort of caught between a rock and a hard space, geographically speaking, then the knee-jerk reaction is just to maintain the status quo, keep the peace. But then when you go further south, for example, when we're in Australia, Australia's got a very different attitude because, Australia's got 17, 18 million people. They have a land mass as big as the United States. And obviously, if you're China, with at this point in time about 1.5 billion people, you need to look for a place to live. You need more land because you're running short of land. So poor old Australia, down there in the southern hemisphere, in the bottom of the world almost, they're kind of alone. So they are America's steadfast partners on this China issue. And they see it the same way that we're talking about today. And that's the right course. So understanding why countries are reacting the way they're reacting is very important. But I can tell you, my wife being Taiwanese, every single day we get a summary. She summarizes all of the news coming out of the Chinese-speaking world. So it's just a coincidence because she likes reading Chinese news and Taiwanese news, but as a result of that, I get to see what's going on the ground, what people are talking about, what the thoughts are. So probably much, much better than most folks across America. And for example, in Japan, Abe, the ex-prime minister that was executed, he was giving a campaign speech for supporters. Well, the news on the ground in the Chinese-speaking world, as well as in the Japanese-speaking world, is the assassin was working for the Chinese. And the reason why Abe, the ex-prime minister of Japan, was assassinated was because he was on board in the direction that we're going to take Taiwan. So he was a very steadfast supporter of American policy in the Western Pacific. Now, of course, we are not in the Japanese security services, and we don't have all of the documentation of that particular assassin's background, where he came from, who he was talking to, who his friends were, who his family members were. But at least in the Asian news media, they're coming up with documents and the friendship relationships, and that's what they're talking about in that part of the world. So if you're a Japanese citizen and you're looking at, wow, I can't believe the Chinese are actually killing people in Japan, especially ex-prime ministers because they support Taiwan, that's a menace. That's a problem. So that rubs both ways, you see. On the one hand, we have the Japanese who really want to be pacifist. They've kind of grown used to a really nice economy without, the clouds of war around them all the time. But on the other hand, you have a very large percentage of the Japanese population that realizes that they've got to have a defense force. They have to stand up to China because China internally has the appetite for expansion, they have the resource need for expansion, and they have an incredibly large population, of which 20% at this moment in time, as we make this video, are starving, and they have a crashing real estate sector, a crashing production sector. There's a lot going wrong in the Chinese world, and the idea that the China could embark on an expansionist venture with the goal of getting other land masses, other resources, is not in the realm of Hollywood fantasy. It's within the realm of possibility. So the Japanese really, they have to come down on the side of holding the line, a very strong Western ally defense and position in the Western Pacific. So that's how that issue will ultimately fall out.